going to show you how to make a crystal using the Zuzi Crystal Press. So you're going to lay a footprint for your bead, and that's going to be slightly shorter than the press is wide, and I will show you that when we get there. But I think the important thing to remember when you are making a pressed bead is the footprint matters just as much with a pressed bead as it does with a heat and gravity shaped bead. So there's no shortcut with that aspect of bead making, no matter what tool you're using. So you're going to create a little tube, is what I like to start with, and then use your press to sort of marver it. And then what you can do is use your press to determine the width. So I'm a little bit narrow. I want just a smidge bit more. So I'm actually a little high on this side. So I'm going to heat that and then marver it out, because I could have added glass, but I think I have enough here if I just reposition it. So give it a little bit of heat and check again. Yeah, there we go. Now we've got nice bead ends on each side, and that is what we're going to try and maintain. So we're going to add glass to the center of the bead, and basically I'm coming in about 1 millimeter in from one side and going to about 1 millimeter in from the other side when I lay my next wrap. And the reason for that is we don't want to lose our bead ends. We like them, they're in the right spot, they're the right thickness, so we want to try and maintain those. So add glass in from the edges. I'm going to get hot so I don't get air bubbles in there. And then I'm going to add another layer of glass. So we're going for a sphere shape is what we want for this. And the reason for that will become more apparent later, but oftentimes people, when they see corners, they think, well, how am I going to get the glass to go into those corners? Basically by keeping the glass in the center of the shape, because the corners are going to work themselves out when you use the physics of the shape, and we will see that as we go. So I am heating, I'm trying to heat mainly the center of the glass and let that sort of round out a bit. And I'm not going to do a full sphere because I do still want those bead ends to be good. So we still have the bead ends. We've got a lot of glass in the center. We might need a little more glass, but we're going to check and see. So what we're going to do is we're going to start marvering, okay? And I'm working in a pretty cold studio, so the glass is taking a bit more to heat up, but we'll get there. One of the fun things about this particular press is you can use it to create little stubby bicones, little squatty bicones. So there we go. So we've got kind of a squatty bicone going on there. And when we're pressing, it doesn't have to be perfectly smooth, but you could heat and marver one more time to get a nice smooth edge. And leave it as a squatty bicone if you wanted. Alright, so I'm going to heat the whole thing up, and then I'm going to lay it in the cavity, and lining up the Z's, I'm going to press. Okay, so that looks pretty cool. See how we kept the glass in the center and it filled out those corners pretty sharply. So now, I don't know if you noticed, but there's a little bit of surface, I don't know, chill marks on the surface. So we're going to get rid of those chill marks. And chill marks are, again, physics. They're caused by the really, really hot molten glass going into a very cool press. And so they create chill marks. It's totally fine. We're just going to polish those off by getting it back in the flame. And what's really great is, even though the surface of this bead is getting fairly warm again and it's, you know, getting red and whatever, the center is not molten and red anymore. And so when we press it again, there's not as much heat in this bead. So the surface is not going to get the same level of chill marks. So each time we fire polish and press, we get less pronounced chill marks. So this is a really good crystal, actually. It's pretty much perfect. So that's awesome. But oh, and you can kind of see if you go down this way that the points are all pretty even. So now I'm going to show you how to troubleshoot, because perfect, well, that's great and that's what we're going for, but more often than not, that's not what we end up having. So if you were to not have enough glass, so say these points were perfect, or one of these points was perfect and the other ones weren't, what you're going to do is pick the two that are least perfect, okay? And you're going to add a dot of glass to one side and then the other. So it needs to be the two that are opposite each other that are least perfect. And you're going to add a little more glass to one side maybe than the other, because maybe one's a little closer to perfect than the other. And the reason that we're dealing with just two sides here is we want to create enough glass, but we never really want to have to be dealing with these points, okay? Those points, if you put this in there, now it's going to push out over the edge. It's going to be a nightmare to get it back in the edge. And so we're going to ignore the other two corners, even if one of them is in desperate need of glass, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to put the points that had the glass added into the press. So they go in like this. And then that way you're never fighting with that edge. So we did that, and now we've got a little bit sharper points on the ends. The glass wasn't fully melted into itself, so I'm gonna do that one more time. So that would be the way that you would add glass. And it's really kind of the same oh, that's the other thing. So when you, let's see, I'm gonna do that one more time so that we can get way too much glass, and hopefully we can push it out over the edge, because I want to show you how to deal with that, because the severity of the overage determines how you're going to fix it. So I'm going to go right back in. I'm going to add too much glass. It's quite a bit, so hopefully we can get that to work. So I'm going to add a lot more heat back into this shape than I normally would, and I'm just doing that for the demonstration of how to troubleshoot. I wouldn't at this point put this much heat back into a bead if it was as close to perfect as it was when we started this, but I want to get it to push out. So I'm going to do this, and now I'm going to put the extra dots in the press, and I'm going to press. Okay, awesome. So see how we have a little lip that goes around the edge there? Well, that lip is just a little bit too much glass. Well, I think we can make that glass go back where we want it. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to add more heat back in, but this time we're going to take the one that has the sort of lip on it, and we're going to put it in like this. So we're going to heat this back up. we're going to lay the edges that have the lip back in, and we're going to press. And so now we have edges on the other side. But if we didn't have way too much glass in here, we wouldn't have, and that would have fixed the problem. So that's one way to fix it, is just heat it back up, turn it 1/4 of a turn, put it back in that press, and use the heat, the physics of the press to do the work for you. However, now that we did too much glass, what we're going to do is we're going to take away the glass. Now, I am only taking glass away from the point. I'm not dealing with this side, even though that's where the lip is. I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to take some glass away. I'm going to heat that up. I'm going to take a little more glass because we were really pretty perfect before I added any, so I've got quite a bit I can take off here. So I'm going to do that. And this is probably going to be a 2-step fix. What I'm going to do is I'm going to heat it back up again. And I'm going to take the highest point. So these points are higher than these points. So I'm going to take the highest points, and those are the ones that are going to go into the press. So high, low, high, low. So high is going to end up going in like this, okay? So I'm going to do that. High points in the press, press. Oh, awesome. So we've got a little bit of a lip, just a teeny bit. Probably I could fire polish that off. And I'm pretty much doing it, but I'm gonna put that one now in the press for my final press so I can get all the chill marks. And then I'm gonna put the lip in the press, and a press, and there. Final fire polish. And I have nice bead ends. I've got crisp edges. I'm back to pretty even points. That is a very pretty crystal. Well, thank you very much for joining in, and I look forward to sharing with you how to use more presses in the future. Have a beautiful night.